Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Cerebral Palsy and Fitness Podcast. I'm here with Eric Chessen. He's a fitness instructor specializing in neurodiverse training with those with autism, cerebral palsy, and much more. So, Eric, welcome.
Thank you, David. Excited to be here and a great start to 2023 too.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for this year. There's a lot of big things coming, especially for you and your platform.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about your background and how'd you got started with fitness.
Yeah, so I started out, I think there are two main ways that people start out in the fitness industry. You either have someone who is a lifelong athlete or they trained lifelong and then it just kind of pooled into their career as a fitness professional. And then you have people like myself who were in sports or not in sports for a very long time, or maybe for me, it was my own personal reasons. So I was involved in sports at a younger age. I played Little League baseball, and we were always running around the neighborhood, playing stuff. And then there came a time, probably around middle school, where I no longer had the competitive drive or the competitive abilities to continue playing baseball at even the high school level, and not a very high level. But so from there, my uh, you wouldn't necessarily call it a career there, but my activity level as far as competitive sports just dropped off because I wasn't doing anything anymore. And I didn't pick up anything else. So once I stopped baseball, I kind of stopped moving, right? I stopped training for anything or training in anything. And that led to me being, sedentary and just sitting
Right.
around a lot, eating a lot, to the point where early in high school, I, had gained a lot of weight. I didn't feel good about myself. It definitely got made fun of on a regular basis, and that certainly affected my self-esteem. And then one day, it was probably around junior year in high school, I just walked into the high school weight room, didn't have a coach, didn't have a trainer, didn't have anything, didn't have any
Oh
knowledge, no
man.
information, had nothing. Just walked in and started doing stuff, on the universal. Granted, it wasn't good. I had no idea what I was doing. I was not following any template, any program, but I knew I wanted to make a change for myself. So that was the beginning of kind of my journey into and fitness as a lifestyle for me. And from there, I got into martial arts, and but I never left weightlifting. I always loved lifting heavy stuff, and so I carried that on. And then after I graduated from an undergraduate program, which was in forensic psychology, but really it was mostly general psych. I thought, oh, I want to do something with psychology and training. At that point, I'd become a personal trainer for general population. And then I went to graduate school in a behavior science program. And I had a classmate who said, hey, I know you're a personal trainer and you're in this behavior science program. I work in a program with teenagers on the autism spectrum, and we've never had a dedicated fitness program. Do you think you could put something together for us? And that was over 21 years ago now. So the journey, the personal journey was me finding a better life through fitness, and something that really is a lifestyle. And we can get back into this, but when we talk about a lifestyle, all this is habits. It's habit and consistency. There's no magic to it. So I taking that on, that's just what I do now. When people ask, oh, how do you, or how is it disciplined? It's not discipline. At this point, it's just ingrained. So I wanted to bring that to my athletes on the autism spectrum with related neurodiversities, with CP, because through strength, there is greater strength. And it carries over to
Yes.
so many different areas. You know this. It carries over into so many different areas of life. And I saw that there was, when I started working in this program, I saw that there was such a lack of information and protocol on how do you deliver not just a program, but the best possible general fitness program for the neurodivergent population. To my knowledge, that didn't exist yet. And because I had this interdisciplinary background, what I was able to do is bridge the gap and say, okay, well, we know how to get someone strong. We
Right.
know how to get them moving better. How do you take those fundamental principles and apply them to a population that has more considerations than we would for a neurotypical person who is highly motivated, who, even if they don't move well, even if they haven't ever really had a program, is going to have fewer obstacles and barriers towards becoming fit if they're really motivated to do so.
Yeah, it's there's like you mentioned, there's a lot of different factors, a lot of different reasons for someone to get fit. And and that's also, you have to think about not just people talk, for example, people talk about a lot about dieting this, dieting that, but you tend to forget the mental strength it takes for you to even start their journey itself.
Yep.
Because it's because you can start one day,
Mhm.
like I said, go to the gym, know absolutely nothing about machines, about workouts, about plans,
Mhm.
dieting, and anything, and think, oh man, this is gonna be so simple. It's gonna be awesome. And then you go through one workout, and you're like, man, no, I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm just gonna quit. I'm just gonna do what I was doing and not go back at it. Versus if you
Mhm.
wake up one day and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna try my best. If it doesn't go well, find an alternative, find another way to get to it. There's always a varieties of always a way to get fit, whether it's going to a gym or just starting with small things at home.
Mhm. Yeah, and also keeping in mind, and it's an extra layer of challenge when we're talking about the neurodiverse population, but there's no progress without discomfort. It
Hmm.
doesn't exist. And do anything in life that is worthwhile is going to involve a measure of discomfort as well. So when you put that on top of the fact that many neurodivergent individuals have so many challenges during the course of the day, things that I might take for granted in, sequencing myself, getting up, getting out of bed, washing my face, brushing my, all of these things for a lot of neurodiverse individuals are challenging. And of course, it's a wide array. And then we get into socialization and all these other things. And then you throw on this extra challenge of saying, hey, yeah, in order to get good at this, there needs to be a measure of understanding or accepting that it may suck
Oh
at first.
yeah.
And that's okay. Like that's okay. One of the coolest things for me is when I speak with parents, because it's predominantly, regardless of the athlete that I'm working at, as far as their age, whether they are 16 or 26 or 66, it's typically the parents or family members contacting me first. I work with some self advocates as well, but they contact me and they say, hey, I want my son or my daughter to be more active, and if we're working one to one or consulting, then they're reaching out to me first. It's not the individual who I'm training, it's them.
Right.
So part of that, after the first session, sometimes a parent will be really nervous and say, was that okay? Are they doing all right? We start where we start. It's fine. I'm not looking for everything to, there's no such thing as perfection, but I'm not looking for everything to be good in the first session. I need everybody to understand and that everything right now is we're good. We start where we start, and in order to get where we want to go, in order to set those goals, there are going to be setbacks. There are going to be things that are difficult. There are going to be things that may not come easy, and that's fine because number one, we know that, and number two, we're setting up a way to get there. So it's not uh, there's no such thing as starting with perfection, and there's no such thing as perfection. So what does that mean? It means that the goal is to stay on that journey. That's all it is, and progress along the way.
Right. And and like you hit it, you said it perfectly. It takes time for you to get to that journey. It might take you a day, it might take you a week, a month, a year. Um, like for me, for example, I started my journey 17 years ago when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor, and the doctor, because I used to be very sedentary, even though I
Mhm.
did sports, didn't really train outside of sports.
Mhm.
So the doctor told me once that if I didn't change my lifestyle, I could end up back in a wheelchair, for the rest of my life. And that's when it hit me, and I said, I need to do something to change that. And I started getting into fitness, and let me tell you, at first I hated it because
Mhm.
you're talking about going into the gym, doing a workout, but aside from the workout, how you look physically, because people will stare at you doing
Mhm.
different exercises, and people will stare at you even more when you're physically disabled because they're concerned about you and you're trying to lift a certain weight, and they're gonna be like,
Yeah.
they're gonna be running up to you asking you, do you need help? Do you want me to adjust this weight for you? And at first, when I started doing it for the first couple of years, people would come up to me and say, do you need help? Can I assist you with the weight? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And at first, someone with a disability, in general, when someone gives you advice in the gym, some people with disabilities are like, man, no, I don't want your advice. I want to do it my own way, this yada yada yada. And then I realized that advice is what helps you get ahead, especially with someone that's willing to help you and is compassionate and
Mhm.
cares about your well-being despite you being disabled. So I've learned
Yeah.
that any kind of advice that helps you,
Mhm.
take it and put it in the back of your mind and take it into consideration. It might help you do better in the gym in the long run. And not only that, but the person that's helping you is taking the time to learn about you.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you go through that every day when you meet your clients and you meet parents. You're not only taking the time to know about them, but they're getting to know about you as well.
No, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I one of the things that I've learned, and that was something that I needed to take into consideration early on, is I don't always have the luxury of my athletes immediately taking to or immediately enjoying exercise, because consider that most of the time it's the parents making the decision and saying, I want my son or daughter, again, any age, any ability level, to get more fit. And so that individual may not understand completely why they're working with me, what we're doing, what the purpose is. All of these things can be like the idea of getting stronger, the idea of moving better, the idea of feeling better. These are still really abstract concepts. And so to say, like, what does stronger mean? What does moving better mean? What does better posture mean? We can understand these things, and we can correlate them to a broader idea, or a more specific idea, both general and specific. A lot of my athletes don't necessarily have that in the beginning, so it's an extra piece that I need to be considerate of. But I wanted to ask you, because of the scenario that you brought up, and this is something that I think is really important, both on I don't want to call them sides, but both in the
Yeah.
the neurodiverse world and in the neurotypical world. If you're training in a gym and someone comes up to you, and I'm sure one of the big factors, I'm sure, has to be tactfulness. It's like the way someone approaches you is going to be a
Yeah.
big deal. But how does that play out in your mind if someone comes up and says, "Hey, can I help you with that?" Because I would think that your initial thought would be, I've got this, but then you also realize, oh, this person is actually trying to help me. So what is that like for you?
For me, it's like, when they come up and ask me, I'm like, oh, okay, so what do you have in mind? So I take the second to listen to what they have,
Mhm.
feedback and whatnot. And then they'll proceed to help. I'm very very open to criticism, to feedback, to people willing to help. I'm not, very closed-minded, because I understand, you being in the gym and seeing a lot of people in the gym that are able-bodied, and then you're kind of the one singled out, being completely different, physically.
Mhm.
You're bound to get looks. And I've over the years, I don't let it get to me anymore, because people get so, get so motivated. The fact that I have people come up to me in the gym and they'll be like, "Man, you motivate me to come to the gym every day and
Mhm.
put forth 110%." I've had people that come up to me and ask me for a picture, just because they're so, awestruck to see somebody like me
Yeah,
just putting in the work. And I'm like, I don't ask for pictures or recognition. I'm just there to do
yeah.
what everybody else does, is just work out. But the fact that I've had people listen to the podcast and just see what I do, and see that positivity behind it, makes it all the difference. And
Mhm.
all it takes is for you to get out there.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, because it's really helpful also. And like gym culture where, going up to anybody, unsolicited gym advice is probably one of the touchiest subjects in the Western world.
It is. It can be for some people. They'll be like, man, they'll take some people will take it offensively, like, "Oh man, are you saying I'm not good enough at this?" Or and but to me, it's like, take come with an open mind, and you don't know if it might help you. You know, so I just keep my mind open, and if it helps, it helps. If not, at least I attempted it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's that way of looking at it is just being open to instead of being automatically charged to turn around and say, yeah, don't bother me, or to just to be open and to be accepting of the fact that someone wants to help, whatever their motive or whatever they think they're going to be doing.
Yeah, like, it's so funny. Like, I've had people who I've interviewed, or if they listen to my podcast, and they'll email me, and they'll be like, "Can you train me? Like, can you be my personal trainer?" And I'm like, "I don't have. I mean, I will, as much as I would love to. I'm not a certified personal trainer.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm pursuing eventually down the line, is to become a certified personal trainer. And and I don't mind when I'm in the gym and somebody asks me, "Hey, can you help me do this? Can you give me some tips on this?" Yeah, and
Mhm.
I'm fine, and I can give you tips, and I can help you get the workout done. It's just I feel afraid because I'm not certified. That I might do something wrong, or I might say something wrong, and something might happen. But I try my best.
Yeah, absolutely. No, just load one side of the barbell. It's fine.
Yeah, right. Oh man, like, it's crazy the way that fitness works at times, especially for somebody with physical disability, and just the neurodiverse community in general.
Yeah. Well, it's such a, oh man, I mean, the fitness world is so difficult to navigate
It
to
is.
begin with because pre-internet, it was difficult to find good information and you really had to seek it out. Post-internet, now I don't know if I want to label it too much of information, but let's say there's an inexhaustible amount of information.
Right.
And then it's so difficult, I think, for a layperson or someone who doesn't really have a good idea of what a what a legitimate fitness foundation or good basic programming or advice looks and sounds like. It's so easy to get caught up in, well, this person is a fitness influencer, so they must know. Meanwhile, most of the like these people don't actually coach anybody, nor have they
No.
ever coached anybody. And they are either making these programs up or they're having someone else ghostwrite these programs. But the average person, regardless, neurodiverse or neurotypical, they don't know this. Like they're being fed
Right.
this constant barrage of information, and a lot of it is just garbage. So it's
Yeah, it is.
do not envy somebody starting out their fitness journey or just looking for good fitness information, because you're going to be hit whether you're looking on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok. It's like, oh, this person has 50 million followers, they must be great. No, they might be good at marketing but
Yeah.
terrible at fitness,
Yeah,
or terrible at coaching. And it sucks because the average person, it's difficult. If you have a decent BS radar, then more power to you. But to just look at it, say, oh, this is well produced, and this person sounds confident, and they look great, and they seem to know what they're talking about. So I'm gonna do this, 1,000 single leg squat challenge, and that's gonna be like, the reality is that most good training programs are simple. Like, simplicity reigns supreme here. And
mm-hmm.
the problem with that is it's very difficult to stand out when you are just talking about the basics. Like when you're saying, yeah, everybody has to squat, push, pull, carry, locomote, like get from one point to another. When you put it that way, it's like, well, that's too simple. That couldn't possibly work. And so you're looking for more. Right?
Right.
People look for, oh, I want the super secret thing. Guess what? It doesn't exist, but someone's going to sell it to you.
And then if they sell it to you, chances are they don't tell you what's in the fine print,
Yeah. Well, there is no fine print,
or there is no
or
fine print.
you do the program and you hit a plateau. And the thing about just starting out is, when you just start out, if you have someone who's detrained or untrained, they've been sedentary or they've never had a training program, anything is going to work in the beginning. You will get started. If you have a sedentary person walking around the block 3 times, if you haven't, taken a walk in 5 years, walking around the block 3 times is going to make you stronger. Now, there's going to be a plateau and it's going to happen relatively quickly. But the thing is, starting out, it's, beginner gains. Just about everything is going to work. It's not to say it's safe. It's not to say it's going to be effective long term, but someone starting out with like the challenges, and it's perfect time of year for that too. It's like January 1st. Okay, the 6 week or 8 week challenge. Does it make sense in terms of the program, the overall programming? Is it a well balanced program? Is it sustainable? And third, and this is something that comes up constantly when we're talking about training the neurodiverse population, but this extends to any population. Is it scalable? Is this workout, is this program scalable for someone who is a novice versus someone, who's intermediate? Like, what's the goal? You start with the goal, like what do we want to accomplish here? And then we move, we work backwards from that.
Yeah, it's I love all those ideas and everything you've given so far. It's for it's like right now, like you mentioned, now we're in a new year, and in my opinion, when it comes to like New Year's resolutions that people make about fitness, I'm like, to me, it's either you get it done or you don't, because you say you're gonna do something for the new
Yeah.
year, but chances are, like you say, you go to a gym for the first 2 weeks, it's packed, and you're like, I don't think this is for me, so
Yeah.
I might as well not do it. Because you can tell who's motivated when you go to the gym the first 2 weeks of the new year
Mhm.
versus after, because it thins out. It thins out so fast. Like I notice how it's packed and then it goes away, and then you're like, man, all these people are wishing New Year's resolutions to get in shape, but they're not committed
Yeah.
to the very beginning, where it's the most difficult, arduous part of the journey, to then seeing the gains, because that was my problem years
Mhm.
ago. Like
Yeah.
I began, it was very difficult. Then I started seeing results, and I got into really phenomenal shape, and this was after my playing days.
Mhm.
After my playing days, I was doing triple digit numbers on every machine, on every workout, and
Mhm.
I would go to the gym, and then I would just look at myself in the mirror, and say, I've made it through a lot. And then as the years progress now, it's like I'm getting through a plethora of injuries and still working out. As you get older, your body starts to break down quicker, and I've tried to learn how to manage that by just
Mhm.
going lighter and
Mhm.
not doing too much. You
Yeah.
know, I remember someone giving me this piece of advice, telling me, "Hey, it's not about the amount you do, the quantity, it's about the quality."
Mhm.
And when they told me that, I'm like, "Wait a minute, I'm doing these heavy, heavy, heavy sets of weights and
Mhm.
these like ridiculous amount of reps. I'm getting
Yeah.
injured all the time."
Yeah.
But then that advice told my body, it's like, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to go lighter and more reps, and that'll save your body in the long run. And that's it's done for me so far, is just keep me from being injured. Because as you know, working with the neurodiverse population, especially cerebral palsy, we get injured so easily. We get hurt
Mhm.
with every little thing we do. And I've tried to avoid that as much as I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And you look at again, it comes back to working backwards from the goal. And, it's a good point. So, for example, with my autism fitness and neurodiverse athletes, it is rare, I mean, super rare, that I go below 5 or 6 repetitions on a particular exercise with my athletes, because they don't need to be approaching anywhere near, not that 5 repetitions is maximal strength, but my goals for them, just programming wise, are building quality control of the movement through the full range of motion. And this extends to the CP population as well. When you're talking about range of motion, if you have an affected side, so you have an affected arm or you have an affected leg, we're constantly looking at, okay, how do we improve range of motion? How do we get more quality range of motion? Because you want to move through you want as elongated a muscle as you can get under tension. You don't want a shortened range of motion under high tension, because that, as you probably very well know, it is a great way to get injured. So in my programming, it's rare that we're going to do anything that's approaching like heavy. And when we talk about heavy, like like maximal range, maximal intensity range of like 1 rep to 5 reps is not an area that we really play in, because it's unnecessary. I want that combination of hypertrophy and strength endurance, and enough time with the movement, like enough repetitions, that it's going to create that motor plan also, so the athlete can perform this movement, um, not unconscious, but they can perform it just anywhere. They can generalize it. In order to do that, we need enough repetitions with just the right amount of intensity, so that there's a training effect. The training effect that I'm after for my athletes is not maximal strength. It's hypertrophy and strength endurance. So we stay in pretty much the 8 to 12 rep range for years and years and years and years, until we have independent mastery. So that is going to govern my training principles around a given population. It's like there's no reason to go stupid heavy on this, because it's not going to fulfill
Right.
on that goal. Like, number one, I want as much injury prevention as possible, and two, I want, as you mentioned, as much quality movement as possible. And it's the same thing as we age. Me now in my 40s, I don't play with powerlifting numbers anymore. I did that. There's no reason, unless I was competitively powerlifting, it doesn't make any sense for me to do anymore. Number one, it's unsustainable, and number two, the injury risk factor is too high, and I would rather have quality of life, um, than I would chasing numbers in my garage gym. Like the glory of shouting to my next door neighbors that I just hit a PR in the squat doesn't really appeal to me all that much anymore.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's one of those things that when you get older, numbers don't really matter anymore unless you're a professional
No,
athlete. Like I'm not a professional athlete anymore, so it doesn't really matter to me. Like,
yeah,
why would I pursue those numbers, and why would I do those things? And now it's about maintaining, about
yeah,
maintenance.
yeah. Well, especially as we age, and this is something that's so important. My favorite athletes, and one of the one of the biggest myths, and by myths, there's the thing that annoys me more than anything else, working with the neurodivergent population, is there's this assumption that we're talking about kids. Oh, it's a fitness program for autism or for the neurodiverse, but it must be for kids. Like, oh, it's a program for, fitness program for kids. The majority of athletes that I work with one-to-one are 18 and older because because for two reasons. Number one, I love working with young adult and adult populations. And number two, because if you're talking about access to fitness programs for the lifetime, there's really, you're not looking at a whole lot that is out there. So with my adult athletes, it's really important that we look at injury prevention and sustaining that strength too, because as we age, there are more lifestyle and more medical and injury considerations to account for. Also, look, after most people after 40, what do you see? You see atrophy of the muscles, and you see bone degeneration. When you're talking about the ASD or the CP or the neurodiverse population, one of the major things to keep in mind is that this is not something that is not a factor in their lives either. Like, just because someone is neurodivergent doesn't mean that they are also at risk, if not more risk, for falling or bone degeneration or all these things that are preventable. That's the good news, it's preventable. But coming back to this idea of consistency and prioritization, if it doesn't become a habit and if it doesn't become something that's prioritized in their lives, then we are going to see more of this. And that's going to be I think that's a major failure of whatever systems we have in place for the neurodivergent population, because we're going to see it. Like, if we don't do something now, I don't have to say it out loud in order for it to happen. Like, it's not any magical incantation that I say, oh, it's gonna, like, it's happening now. So we can either be on the cusp of it and prevent it by using sound techniques and principles, or we can say, oh, it's too bad that someone with autism, fell and now they're injured and they have difficulty even understanding what's going on.
Yeah, it's one of those things, that you yourself, if you're willing and committed and you have somebody that's compassionate about, can help assist in that kind of prevention. Because I myself, I've been fortunate enough to where I've never suffered a serious injury. I've suffered strains and pulls in my back, but I've never broken a single bone or anything in my entire life. And I'm fortunate. I guess it's the athlete in me that
Yep.
that I'm physically fit and I can take in a good amount of damage and absorb it too. So,
Yeah.
especially when I played football, I played football in a league for kids with all kinds of disabilities up to high school.
Yeah.
And it was flag football, but there were times where some of those kids, they don't understand what flag is. So you would get slammed, with no pads, nothing. You would go down.
It's
And
kind of flag football.
yeah, it's kind of flag football, but sometimes it wasn't. But I get back up and keep on playing, and I'd be shooken up, and the coach would try to take me out, and I'm like, "No, man, I got this." I got, and there are times where I would, get even worse, and eventually I'd be out for 2-3 weeks. But then I told myself, you know what, you need to stop being so hard headed, because
Yeah.
it could have gotten worse for you.
Well, but right there also, what you just said is so encapsulates why fitness is so important. Is that your mindset is, oh, I got this. Like, you, through your training, whether it be athletic and then your general training now, you've developed both physical and mental resilience for these things. You don't have to worry about some of the things that may be bigger considerations or bigger problems, potential injury risks for other people. because these are things that you train, you're training, it becomes cliche almost, but you're training for life. You're training so that you don't have to worry about this stuff. So you can say on a regular basis, I got this. And that's what we want to bring to more neurodivergent people also, so that so that those stress levels, so that those levels of anxiety, we can decrease those a little bit. And the levels of I can do this and autonomy and independence, we can increase those as well. Like the the initiation or being a self-starter and saying, yeah, I'm going to go train, or yeah, I'm going to go this, I'm going to leave the house. It's a big deal for a lot of people.
It is.
And I think that so much of that starts with physical fitness. Like, just you leave a training session knowing that you just accomplished something, and you have to say that there's something to that you don't get from many other things in life.
Uh, is so is your program accessible to not just I mean online clients, but do you see people personally, like, you
Mhm.
know, near your state, or do you
Yeah.
drive far to go meet with them?
No, so I used to. So my wife and I moved down here to Charlotte, North Carolina about 3 years ago, March 1st, 2020. So for those of you following the pandemic timeline, 17 days later, our former home of metropolitan New York was closed down. So when I was working in New York, I was kind of all over the place, in centers and gyms, doing one-to-one and small group programming. So now, I'm situated in one place in Charlotte. I work at one facility with my one-to-one training programs. I do some distance consulting. The most important thing I think that I do, important being relative, but the most widespread, is the Autism Fitness Certification. So certification has a worldwide reach. I have certified pros and parents in 10 or 11 different countries, throughout the world, who want to learn how to put together and implement the highest level of fitness and adapted PE programs.
That is awesome. And speaking about how we mentioned Paralympic athletes earlier, and no, actually about I'd say 2 years ago, I interviewed Marshall Zachary. He's
Mhm.
a former Paralympic, he is still a Paralympic athlete,
Mhm.
8-time para national champion, and
Wow.
he also competed in the Tokyo Olympic Games in 2020. So
Mhm.
I got the chance to interview him. He does I think it's T8. He's a T8
Mhm.
runner and a sprinter.
Okay.
And he has CP, and he's also partially blind. So
Wow.
it's and he's incredible. I got to interview him, and I also got to interview. Have you heard of professional wrestler Gregory Iron?
Who does he wrestle for?
He's an independent wrestler, but he's the only wrestler with cerebral palsy in the world.
I did not know this, and I'm a big wrestling, like, professional wrestling is the only thing that I watch consistently.
Yes, and he actually was trained by former NXT champion Johnny Gargano.
Yes.
He's best friends with Stone Cold Steve Austin, CM Punk.
Wow.
He's had tryouts with Impact Wrestling, WWE.
Okay.
He was supposed to have one with AEW, but I guess his medical clearance didn't go through.
Okay.
But he's wrestled all over. He's got his own podcast, Iron on Wrestling. Um, he's a wonderful, phenomenal guy. Like I got to meet him. I've been in conferences with him,
Yeah.
speaking engagement conferences, and I got to speak about adaptive fitness. And I met him through a friend of mine who made a cameo, who did a cameo, and he was on Cameo.
Hmm.
So it was my birthday, and they surprised me with a cameo from him.
Hmm.
And he mentioned about my birthday and about certain things about me. And he said,
Hmm.
David, I've heard about your podcast, Cerebral Palsy and Fitness. And he's like, I'd like to take some time to be on your show so that I could talk about myself. And I want to listen to your episodes too. So on the same day of my birthday, about 2 hours later, we were on a call doing an episode for my show.
Oh,
And
that's dope.
I'm like, this is incredible because I've been a fan of his for a long time. I've tried to reach out to him,
Mhm.
and he shared a story about overcoming cerebral palsy, how he
Wow.
started training. He said that a lot of facilities that would try to go to, they would completely deny him
Wow.
because of his CP, and they were scared about him getting injured. But
Mm.
he would keep coming back up, and he would keep on training, didn't give up.
Yeah.
He would pay money. He's like, I pay money to get my own ass kicked, but I wanted this so bad. I wanted this so
Mm.
bad, and he fought through it. He got the opportunity, and he's wrestled all over, and it's incredible. And he even pitched to Vince McMahon on a show years ago
Huh.
that he wanted to be a part of there was a rumor saying that he was going to be part of the Rumble, and he's like he really wanted to do something with that because, as you know, Zach Gowen,
Yeah.
he actually Zach Gowen and Gregory Iron tag team with each other in the independent circuit, known as
I
the
have to go
Handicap
YouTube
Heroes.
this.
Yeah, you got to YouTube this, and you got to YouTube Gregory Iron because I feel like his work as a heel is better than his work as a face. He is
Oh, totally.
hilarious. He's hilarious, and he can put in the work. He just I don't know if he's still wrestling now because it seemed like I was following him on Instagram and he posted a hint saying he had retired, but I
Hmm.
don't honestly I don't think he's retired yet, but he's incredible, and if you have the chance to get to look him up, do so because he's awesome.
Oh, I'm making the chance. That's what I'm doing this evening.
Yeah, and
It's dinner and then going down the rabbit hole of this dude.
yeah, and yeah, like I've been able to interview him and Marshall Zachary and a lot of different athletes and people from all kinds of diverse backgrounds as far as the disability community
Mhm.
and as far going back into fitness, that's incredible. That shows you that anybody with any kind of physical limitation or mental limitation can pursue fitness, and it doesn't mean that you have to do it a certain way, but do it your own way. Do it the way you can,
Yeah.
and do the best that you can.
Yeah. Well, that's why individual goals are so important too. It's like, well, what do you want to do? And then what is the best way to get there? Because there are plenty of ways to not get there also, but you want X. And okay, well, how do we get you to X, or how do we get you close to there? Because someone will say, and this is so far off on the aesthetic side, but someone will say like, oh, I want like 7% or 8% body fat. It's like, do you really want 8% body fat, or you just want to be really lean? It's like, when
Yes.
you start digging into these questions, it's not to say, oh, you don't want that. It's to say, you want something in that realm, but not exactly that. And you could have a very specific, you come back to like numbers. Someone may say, oh, I want a 400-pound deadlift. Okay, fine. This is the goal. Where are we at now? How do we get you there? And what's realistic also? And is it really about the 400 pounds, or is it about feeling really strong? So you get into these different questions about what someone's real goal is, what their mentality is about it, and of course what they're willing to do to get there.
Yeah, it's all about at the beginning of fitness, it's all about uh of course listen to who's training you, but at the end of the day it's about you. What do
Yeah.
you want to pursue? What are you looking for to do, and how you do it, and then just go about the journey.
Yeah. And having structure to it also, coming about it as too random a way. And that's, we talk about in the fitness industry, like program hopping, like, oh, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks. Oh, but this looks good, so I'm going to do that for 3 weeks. And then you don't make any progress. And typically variety is the enemy of progress, because if you're doing too many different things, number one, you're not getting that training effect from consistency, and number two, you don't know what's actually working because you're doing so many different things that you're not sure, okay, this works really well for me. Like, for me, after 20 something years of strength training, I know what works well for me. I know what feels good. I know what exercises, are going to get me to X. And I know, I know when something feels good. I know when something doesn't feel good, because it's been so consistent. someone who doesn't necessarily have that same training age or that same kinesthetic awareness, nothing feels good.
Right.
Everything feels challenging. And that's why consistency is so important. So, okay, this works within these parameters. This works sometimes, and then this doesn't work at all. Like I'm not doing this, but a lot of it you have to like you have to test for yourself, and you also have to look at one of the things that I talk about often is exercises and equipment they're all tools, right? So if you understand what the objective is and what the tool is, and then how to use the tool, then you're more equipped to be able to set and realize that goal. If everything is just, oh, I'll try this, oh, I'll try that, okay, well, then you're just throwing things together and you're not exactly going to be building a house. If you don't start with a foundation, it'll probably wind up being something that I would build in a house situation, because I have no idea what I'm doing.
So, Eric, are you still taking clients, and what are some of the ways that those individuals or my listeners are interested in reaching out to you? How can they contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my one-to-one program here in Charlotte, it's really limited right now. So I'm not really taking on one-to-one clients, but I do some distance consulting for both families and self-advocates as well, and some programming. But really, I think people would get the most out of going through the certification program if they're doing it for themselves. So if there are self-advocates, or there are ASD or CP athletes out there, then I do some distance consulting. Best way to get a hold of me, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, but autismfitness.com. You can not only email me directly, but I have an actual phone number up there, and people can actually really speak with me or text me, and I will answer. And then, of course, the Autism Fitness on Instagram. I post a weekly video, Tuesday training, on YouTube. That's also the Autism Fitness. So main hub is autismfitness.com, but if you hit me up on Instagram, I will always answer.
Oh, Eric, I've definitely appreciated a lot of your insight, your expertise on the neurodiversity, on autism, cerebral palsy, and a lot of the different topics we talked about today in regards to fitness and our well-being.
Mhm.
Um, I for sure have learned a lot today. I don't know about you, and I'm beyond excited for the future for 2023 and what it holds for the both of us.
No, I so appreciate your mission, and you as a person, and also you as a professional, to show other people what is possible, and the fact that you're just doing it too, and that you are unstoppable, that you said, I'm putting this together. Your athletic career into your own training, and just being, the word role model is thrown around, but someone looks at you or listens to you and they say, I can do this, or someone I know can do this. Like, that's really important, to be that pillar for people, because if you don't have an example, then it's often difficult to say, oh no, this is possible. But you
Right.
as an example enable other people. And the cool thing is, sometimes you're not going to know it. Like, you're inspiring people across the road or across the world, and you may not never know it. So you just keep putting stuff out there, because it will make a difference.
Yeah, eventually it'll reach out to somebody, and when it does,
Yeah.
that's when it pays off.
Oh, completely. Yeah. And that's just how you do good in the world.
Well, Eric, thank you for being on today, and I will have all this information in the description below. You're gonna find this episode on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and every other major podcasting outlet out there.
Mhm.
And Eric, once again, thank you for being on. I appreciate you. Thank you for your knowledge and expertise. And until next time, you guys.
Thank you, David.